Welcome to Hello Chaos, a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic lives and minds of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Each week, I have the privilege to speak with founders across the spectrum, founders from different industries at various stages, from startups to mature businesses of all shapes and sizes. Our listeners get to hear the real, the raw, the unvarnished viewpoints and stories, getting incredible insights on what it takes to start and scale a business, how to become a better founder, how to become a better CEO, or just a better business leader in the community. Today on our show, we have Mark Bergel, co-founder of the Shared Humanity Project right here in Greenville, where I live. So welcome, Mark. Welcome to the chaos.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hopefully my story isn't too chaotic, but I'm really happy to be here.
Well, some of them don't realize it's chaos. I feel like we welcome chaos as founders and entrepreneurs, and we kind of structure it.
Well, you know what?
We live in it.
And you're not looking for this, but honestly, chaos is really interesting when you think about chaos theory and the transformation that only comes with there is chaos. So
yes, absolutely. I feel like you've just summed up my last 5 years of my own journey, because I own a marketing agency outside of the media company. So I started Orange Whip a couple of years ago, really dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs, because I saw there was a gap in the space. But it's because I founded my own marketing agency back in 2013 and really just been the highs and lows, and we grew really, really fast and trying to figure out how to scale. And then the chaos forced me to go through a self-discovery and really kind of really focused inward, of allowing me to then grow into the person and leader. And I'm still a work in progress, always will be, like most of us. But well, start us. I know that the Shared Humanity Project is 5 years? 5 years. What inspired you to start this and getting into the entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. I was running a nonprofit organization that I founded, and that had its own story that came out of my living room and grew into a 45,000 square foot facility and became kind of a very popular nonprofit serving people in poverty in the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay.
And that was its own story, with a founding story, its own kind of moment of, I got to do something to help people. But the kind of moment that made me realize I needed to move on from that was seeing that I was a part of a poverty industrial complex in this country that treats symptoms and that is filled with money, filled with over $1 trillion a year. Add a couple $100 billion more. I mean, it starts to have less meaning when you talk about money in those ways, but
right,
a lot of money.
It's like monopoly money, right? I mean,
exactly, but for very little outcomes for the people who are in poverty. So many points during that journey, I said, what's going on here? And I think I lost my way as well and became a willing part of the poverty industrial complex that made me feel frustrated with myself. And the more awards we got, the more words I got, the more empty I felt. And so the moment to start this organization came around 2018, when I realized that the people I had served 15 years prior were still in poverty. And I was staring down maybe however many more years of doing the work I was doing without getting what I would call real results for the people.
The impact that you were trying to achieve. Right?
It gets lost. And when I speak about nonprofits, in case we do speak about them, I'm really just talking about poverty nonprofits, because I don't know a lot about health, environmental nonprofits. I know a lot, but not enough to comment. So when I talk about we're treating symptoms, I'm really talking about what I think a lot of us in the poverty nonprofit space, as well as the government human service space, are doing.
Okay. And so when you started this, do you had to close down the other organization and start this, or was it a shift in mission? How did that transition happen?
That's a great question, because I was so connected to that organization. I started in my living room.
You started it, and it's
and as it grew, it was I almost didn't have my own identity. I was that organization, and it just felt like the community in the greater Washington area was relying on it. One of the things we did was collect furniture from people who had more than they needed and distribute it to people who didn't have any. And I didn't think it was wise to shut that down just because we weren't solving the problem. So it made sense for me to move on instead of take the organization in a different
Right.
direction. I mean, I
So
would
almost like a succession plan.
put that in,
Yeah.
handed it off to somebody who was higher up in the organization. The board remained largely the same. And they, in fact, gave the seed money for my new organization. They gave us $1.2 million seed money
Wow.
to start the new organization. And that was really helpful to start the organization. And an economist who I had known from that organization wanted to do this new one. And she's my
Hmm.
co founder.
What was the inspiration for this? Like what's the difference maker, the impact maker that you're having with the Humanity Project versus the other organization?
Well, yeah. And of
What
course,
what problem is it solving that's different?
well, I think what it's solving is just that. We're trying to solve poverty,
Hmm.
not just help people. I mean, it's just I think if there's a phrase that would capture what I'm saying today, and this would work, is what we've done, whatever our intentions, has not been enough. The
Yeah.
intentions have not met the results. And
Yeah.
I think in the poverty nonprofit space, many people are too invested in what they're doing. They're building careers, they're fundraising in huge sums, but we're not solving problems.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to throw shade on
No.
anybody or any organization, but we have to be truthful because these are people dying in poverty every night at large numbers because of the lack of safety. They're losing their potential because of the lack of adequate education and just the lack of access in general.
Right.
I think what we're doing is just a small piece of what's possible.
Yeah. And I love the I've heard the term, and I've worked with several nonprofits that kind of distinguish and try to educate people around being sure that when um, what impact are you having, making sure that all your KPIs, the things, that actions that you're doing is actually moving um, that forward. And somebody actually here in Greenville with I don't know if you're familiar with the Trayune Center. She kind of coined the issue with a lot of nonprofits around toxic charity. Is that what kind of like is that kind of what you were talking about of you get people that get lost, it's more about them and not about and so you create this basically toxicity in the charitable world.
So I'm going to release a book this year, and there's a chapter called Checkbox Syndrome. And checkbox syndrome is that we volunteer for us instead of the people we're
That's
helping.
right. We give away our clothes because I feel good about giving away my clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe we should look at it differently. Like that's a symptom level thing to do. It doesn't mean your intentions are nice, but good intentions don't make a difference. And so I have actually evolved out of worrying about people's intentions or
Hmm.
feelings because feelings don't matter, sympathies don't matter. Your
Right.
sympathies don't change how many people are going to get shot to unless you're willing to take action in your community.
Hmm.
So this organization is trying to guide people to take informed action, action that will actually change the conditions that our fellow human beings are enduring every day.
And I know you're based here in Greenville. Is the geography of your focus this area, or is it a national, or is it international? Like, where's the scope?
Well, as the name type might make you think, it has to be broad. So
Yeah.
I can work from anywhere. I just happen to love the Greenville area. Who wouldn't? And so, yes, it's national right now because that's what I know. I know poverty nationally. I know
Yeah.
poverty, our approach to poverty nationally, but I have to believe it will expand. And I do some consulting for people who are working in other
Yeah.
countries, but right now the main focus is national.
Well, I love the name. How did you guys come up with the Humanity Project?
Well, the shared humanity, shared humanity is the answer to this. It just is. We're not going
Hmm.
to solve it through a better government program or
Right.
a nonprofit idea of the year. It's by each of us, no matter who we are, whether we're in middle school or in a Rotary Club or, in a faith community. If we each do something in our community that actually can lead to outcomes, it's informed, that solves the problems locally, that's how we will end up eradicating poverty one town at a time. I really believe that. I know it sounds naive, but I believe that.
Well, if there's intentionality and purpose, I think, and that allows us to focus, and then you do see. I mean, it's just like in any business, both internally as well as what you put out there. You just got to have um, that focus on that. So, what's been the most rewarding part since you did this? I mean, because it's a big jump. It's a big transition. So, You've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. What's been the most rewarding part?
I think learning. My co-founder is extremely well informed. She's the smartest person with whom I've ever worked. So I was honored that she wanted to do this work together. And learning from her and from some of my team right now, I have a team of interns, and I learned from them as well. And so I think that's been the most rewarding. Sometimes when you're running a nonprofit organization, you're so concerned with the day to day, whether that's fundraising or are all the utilities working in your warehouse? Are the
Right.
people you're serving, are they happy? Is your staff doing well? You kind of stop learning unless you take time whenever that may be, Saturday night at midnight or
Right. You
PM.
never you never stop. You're always on.
Yeah,
Right.
so I think the fact that I've been able to learn a lot in the last 5 years, what I really hope to learn a lot so that I could be a better kind of guide for people doing this work, and that's been the most rewarding thing.
I love that. Mark, what do you think is the biggest what was the biggest hurdle or maybe it wasn't when you started the foundation, your other nonprofit years ago, and then starting this one? Was it easier? Was it harder? Like, was it just like, yeah, I know how to do this. This is no problem.
There was only a small percentage of that, but I think for me, and I was talking to one of my interns this morning and sharing when I started the first organization, I remember telling myself, well, I have to at least make it 5 years so I look like I succeeded.
Right.
And right there is the problem because it's not about me. It's
Yeah.
about the people we serve. And so I'm doing this one a lot more patiently and making sure that before I ask people to give a lot of money, that I have a product that will mean that theirs is a good investment and not an investment for something that's more territorial or
Right.
self-serving. And so I feel like I'm happy that I'm able to take my time on this. And now we're at a point. It's funny we're talking today because I think we're about to launch some initiatives that to me are worthwhile for people to invest in. But the first 5 years, I think the people who invested were really just so true believers, and I'm really grateful to them. Now I
Right.
think we have some products that they can feel especially good about.
Oh,
So
good. Yeah.
I
Well, I
just
think
finish
if
that
you're
thought I
oh,
forgot. Yeah, sorry. To finish that thought is it can't be about me anyway, right? It has to be about what we're doing. We use the words like mission driven a lot in this space, but we're not mission. So I want to make sure I'm mission driven.
yeah. How do you distinguish that?
That
Right.
you're
I mean,
Yeah, if you're not accomplishing your mission, you get out of the work. Don't just try to raise money for raising. I've been in a lot of board meetings over the last few decades where not just my organizations, but other organizations where success is measured by how much you raise,
mm,
and that is distorted.
yeah,
So I think there's a distorted provinciality. I think there's a distorted goal setting and goal accomplishment, and to me, it is at the harm of people who are in poverty. They're the
yeah,
ones who should benefit from all this energy, right? All we used to have thousands and thousands of volunteers, but very few people we served ever got out of poverty.
mm,
And I want to make sure that's not the case
that's
across the
right.
country because everybody working in these organizations, it's working hard. Again, it can't be about that. It has to be about outcomes. And if you're not achieving outcomes, change or get out of the way.
That's right. That's right. What's been the most challenging part of? Is it just been trying to convince people of it's all about outcome focused and shifting mindset, or just now you're back to raising money, developing product? Like, what's been the most challenging?
You are so perceptive. It's true.
Uh,
Those are the two things, right? It's one helping people to step out of the dominant paradigm of and the archetypes that come with a charitable philanthropic
yeah.
mentality. It can't be just about a good idea and feeling good about supporting a good idea or a heartful story. It has to be about outcomes. And we have to believe we can end poverty. Like, we're not going to end poverty if we don't believe we can. And I don't think most people believe we can. We
Mm,
accept it as part of the modern cultural mosaic. It's not. It's a tragedy that exists only because we don't have the will to
right.
eradicate it. And if we had the will, we could. It's not difficult. And
Mm,
then the second thing is getting myself to understand that just because I fundraised for 20 years and felt that that was part of the problem doesn't mean that fundraising now is part of the problem. If my product is important for society, then we ought to go ahead and try to raise funds to support that because I think it can change things.
mm. I love it. Love it. All right, Mark, I'm asking. question of what is something as you've kind of gone through this journey, um, and really kind of you're shifting, changing perceptions and all that. What's something that you have found that you really like about yourself that you wish other people recognized more about you when you walk into a room or you're presenting, and talking that what's something that you really want, you're like, I am this, but people have this misperception about me.
Well, I think it's easy to have misperceptions, especially when you're running an organization. You get lost and you can treat your team a little less kindly sometimes than
Yeah.
you want. So I always regretted not being a little more sensitive to
Mhm.
people not being as motivated, perhaps in different ways. Like, I kind of gave up everything to accomplish this mission. So then I think there's an authenticity. Like there's nothing else in me. Like there's no self-serving. I don't have an ego around this. It can look like it though. But all I care about is if we end poverty and if we understand that following that, there's a transformation and a transcendence that we could experience in our lives. We're
Mm.
capable of so much more. We exist much more broadly than we see with the naked eye, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know we're
Completely
connected.
agree.
Just, I mean, people have told us that over the generations, like Young with collective unconscious. I mean, that's really critical stuff. The quantum physics that showed us how interconnected we are and how non-local things can occur. So
Mm.
I'm a true believer in that. And I think I'd like for people to say, yeah, he talks about ending poverty. I'd like to actually not just judge whether he's right, but embrace that we can and do something
Right.
about
Is it become just curious of, because I love that the pushing on that assumption, and it sounds like the category, the industry of the poverty missions out there, it's almost like there's a disbelief, like you said. It's we're doing this, but we really don't believe we can change, but we can try. And you're saying, no, 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 no. For as much energy, for as much attention, for as much money that's in this pool, that you've got people that care about it, we should be able to create outcomes, create save lives, get them out of poverty. There's a hope there.
that. Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to, like, we need to have that there, the hope needs to be there. Is that what you're trying to change perceptions on?
Yes, I'd like to talk to you every day. You're so perceptive, Jennifer, because that is exactly right. I think it's more than hope. Sometimes, hope is used so much. I remember
Yeah.
watching a football coach one time, Rick Neuheisel, and he's like, "Hope is not our strategy. Like we
Mm.
had to really work hard at this. We had hope, but we also put in the hard work." I'll tell you just a quick little anecdote, which is that I remember being in a meeting of executive directors of poverty nonprofits, and I wanted us to meet outside of that meeting so we could really work on the region and solving the problems. And I said, "How about 6 o'clock?" And this person said, "They don't pay me enough to work past 5:30."
Ugh.
It's like, first of all, they pay you plenty to work on poverty. I knew what she made.
Right.
And what are you doing in this space? Like,
Right.
this cannot be a job. It has to be more.
You gotta care.
Yeah, it has to be about our humanity. This is not a job for me.
Right.
It's about our humanity and the fact that so many people are not just marginalized and exploited, but ignored completely at the risk, I think, of our own humanity. I think poverty represents to me that hole in my soul, my
Mm.
spirit, because wait, something just isn't right here. And it's the fact that there's so much unnecessary struggle.
Yeah. Well, isn't that like the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of like just making people feel secure? It is literally food, sustenance,
Yeah.
energy, that if you people have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, so much energy goes into that, and it's then you're never going to move up.
Well, I think so. And, I did my master's in doctoral work all about kind of what's possible for the human species
Mm.
and how we can evolve. And then I realized I'm not interested in my own transcendence or evolution if other people can't even get dinner, right? Or
Right.
lunch or school supplies. So I think as a species, even if we shrink that to as a country, we ought to be able to make sure everybody has what they need. And that's not some political statement. It's certainly not.
Right.
I don't think the people who have wealth are the ones who are supposed to do it. And I don't think the people who are in poverty are to blame. I think this is kind of what's our shared humanity and
That's
how do
right.
we live that every day? And literally, how do we live that every day? And And so, yeah, I think we just need to think bigger about who we are. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one of the great models that we have, right? One of the
All
great
right.
things, for sure.
And it's just like, that's the first,
First,
the very
and
first.
Jennifer, there's a lot of research, right? Neural activity, brain chemistry, et cetera, that says if you don't have anything in the kind of survival mode, like if you don't have enough food, your brain won't develop. So we are
Mm.
hindering people's their own sense of humanity and wholeness by not making sure they have their basic needs met. If any of us went into a starvation or survival mode, we stop the neural conduction
Oh, yeah.
higher level and go just into survival.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, even just when you take it like the personal, if you're not feeling well, if you're cold, like you're
Right.
like we go in like last it was cold here. I was at a baseball game and I'm like, my brain won't even function. I need to go home and put on my wool socks. And but it was like I usually continue to kick out and work and stay on, and like you can't. You just I'm just thinking like from a personal, but working in some of the space, I volunteer a lot with, with church or with like youth groups, and some of the stats. I don't know. It's been a few years, but it's one of the most alarming stats that I worked with a nonprofit on, who did some really great developmental like education of it. Had to be, and they were working with K and first grade students is where their focus was, and the studies that they had shown were, you kids needed to be peer ready by third grade,
Mhm.
and if they were not, then it was like 30% less likely for those students to then graduate from high school. But to be peer ready, it had to be across what they call base. It was not just education, it was behavior, it was their social aspect, it was academic, and then emotional. And if they were not at peer ready at all four of those at baseline, then it just, they're not like, it just feeding that. And then the stat of by third grade, what was it? I don't know if it's the state or if it's federal that looks at kids that aren't developmentally ready at third grade. They can tell the number of beds they need in prisons.
Yeah, that's right. That was a statistic that was out there a few years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still accurate. It's been several years since I've worked with some of those nonprofits, but to me, those are like, oh my gosh, like why are we not doing, like, it just seems like putting the focus there. And you're right. It's a, to me, it's your community. It's that weak link community, however you want to define it. Is it geography? Is it country? Is it more of like shared likenesses as your community, dog love, or whatever it is?
Well,
We're only as strong as our weakest link. And so we gotta work on those weak links.
well, that's right. And I think sometimes we get things backward. Like the weak links are probably us and our lack of social cohesion,
Hmm.
right? And our lack of community. I remember hearing the stat about third grade from the director of education back in the early 90s. And the truth is, educationally, we have not gotten better. I mean, there are 23 schools in Baltimore alone where 0% of the students in that school can do math at grade level.
Hmm.
0%
That
doing math at grade level. What's the future we're preparing them for?
right.
I can tell you that that is not uncommon for a major metropolitan area, that the educational outcomes are, if I weren't fired up and idealistic, you get awful depressed awful quick because we're just not helping these kids at all. And the fight, even today, we're talking about Department of Education. We should be looking at what's really happening. Who's ultimately been responsible? Is it the mayors? Is it the
Right.
city councils? I am not like an attack dog kind of guy, but I am interested in the truth and I'm interested in the
Yep.
humanity of this. And the humanity is we have to take away authority from people who cannot exercise it in the best interest of our fellow human beings.
That's right.
And it's
That's right.
gone on at every level for way too long. I've seen it all. I've worked with people at every level. And that's part of the reason I started this organization, because I've seen the ineffectiveness and the inefficiency and the lack of willingness to change course.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, focus on the outcomes. If you're not moving the needle, why are you in it?
And, when I say
Let the
so,
money go to people that are making a difference.
well, that's right. And there are
Yeah.
some. I was just talking to someone in Colorado a couple nights ago. We were emailing, and he told me about the coaching experience he's having. And 90% of the kids in their trade school program get jobs at livable wages upon graduating their program, which was not a long program. And I
Right.
thought, that's something that works.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was so happy he shared that. And that's an example. That guy was a lawyer for a long time. He retired. He became a coach in these programs. That's what we can all be doing, right?
Yeah.
That's the example to follow, in my opinion, and to find a program like that. And I've been a part of job training programs. I've started some that haven't produced those results. And we need to get out of the way and let people do it who can do it effectively.
What are the type of programs that the Humanity Project is putting out there? Hey, founders, quick pause in the chaos for something that might just change the way you think about marketing. Quick question. Is your marketing actually working or just making noise? Bright Marketing helps founders and CEOs stop guessing and start growing. They're not like most agencies. They don't push cookie cutter campaigns or chase trends. They start with curiosity, the kind that uncovers what's really holding your business back and builds a strategy that actually moves the needle. Because marketing is not a department. It's not an expense. It's a growth engine if you do it right. If your brand feels stuck, scattered, or misaligned, they can fix all that. They are offering a mini brand therapy workshop, a 60-day tune-up. Only 5 slots are available. Send an email to hello@gobrightnow.com to grab one of these spots or to learn how their service packages work to help you get clarity, confidence, and real results. Send that email today and write curious in the subject line. Now back to the chaos.
So one of the initiatives on which we're working right now is called Rising Up, and we're interviewing people from around the country who have either risen out of poverty or they live in poverty right now. Because, I've been around the table, many tables with mayors and county executives and council members and executives from every sector talking about what we should do about poverty. But who's not at that table very often is people in poverty.
Mm.
And we're not listed. They should be almost at every seat and
Right.
maybe one or two others. That's it. So we're trying to talk to people and learn from them what works. What do they think is the best pathway for them? What can we as a society do to support that journey? And so we're getting stories, and my team that's working on it's phenomenal people. And so they just started last month, and I think we put 4 or 5 in the can already, and we're going to continue to do some. And as soon as we get a nice number, we'll start putting them out on our website. And I think that's of interest. I think we also we do some advisement. So I work with nonprofit organizations that are led by people with more lived experience that they want to help in their communities.
Okay.
So I like helping them build organizations that can really thrive, that they can understand what everybody else in the sector is doing to raise funds or build boards or refine programs. I like doing that. That's another thing we do.
Is it like having the Humanity Project at the local side, so you have chapters? Is that the idea,
No.
or just having some representatives to kind of take what you guys have and bring it to the local level?
Well, the goal is for us to really just be sounding boards, feedback, and I don't like the word consultant per se because I like to do the on the ground work. But we want to reach the whole country. We can't be in every town.
Right.
The goal is not for us to grow. We need the funds to keep doing what we're doing. But I'd like to see organizations that are accomplishing. I don't care what sector they're in. I don't care if we help a Catholic church, mosque, a Jewish temple, or a Rotary Club, or the Marriott Corporation, or Donahoe Construction. It doesn't matter to me whom we help, as long as they can be productive parts of their communities, right? As long as they can solve the problems. It doesn't matter what they do for a product line, but on their volunteer day, make it about solving a problem, not about counting how many volunteer hours you had.
So all outcome based. That's going to be everything outcome based.
That's it.
So if you could change 2 things about the organization today, magic wand, I'm giving it to you. What would be the 2 things you would want changed?
I'd like to see more of our own output for fundraising. I don't do it. I'd like to see that. And I'd like to see us, again, be more aggressive with our outreach to potential partners. So that's what we're doing. But as you know, there are a lot of pieces. When you're an entrepreneur,
you're wearing a lot of hats.
You wear a lot of hats. And when you're in a nonprofit, I really want to make sure that we are subject matter strong. So I spend a lot of time reading and researching and making sure that everything I say is evidence-based and it can be backed up. So I say some fairly strong statements. I want to make sure they're not just opinions or a rant, but
Right.
they're really grounded in evidence. And so I spend a lot of time looking at, for example, how much we spend on SNAP, what used to be called food stamps, and how
Right.
many people are hungry and how many people are making a living administering programs that are supposed to solve the problem but don't. And that's what I mean when I say the poverty industrial complex. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about, because these are people who often have really big hearts and they get into the work to be
Right.
kind.
And for whatever reason, maybe they've lost their mission.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it happens in any industry. I mean, I was just talking to another founder who great technology in the biomedical space, and but he needs investors, and that's a double-edged sword of kind of handing over a portion of your business and having that pressure. But it is. But he's like, I can make so much more impact if I have this. But then he gets caught up. Sometimes he's like, the proximity power of, well, maybe I'll just adjust this because this is what they want that for me to sell it or to me to get. And I'm like,
Yeah,
and I said, I hope I still recognize you 2 years from now. Like, I hope it's the same, conversation. And it was like, don't lose sight of the mission and your impact.
yeah.
And he's like, nobody talks about that. Like, nobody sits, and we don't talk about that enough in like founder space and entrepreneur space of, cause you do get caught up in that real quick.
That's right. You know, you get ego attached to your organization and you
Yep.
think I mean, I did. I thought my organization was a reflection of me. And so it had to grow and be successful. And the truth is, it did not have to grow unless it was achieving the outcomes it set out to. And I do think I got lost and caught up in the awards and
Mm.
the recognitions for the organization, and that fundraising and how much we were making year over year became more important than whether or not people were getting out of poverty. And that's not hyperbole to say it. That's what happened. It became more important than whether or not people were getting out of poverty. We still loved people. We
Right.
helped them. We cared about them. We cared about our services. But all those things are not enough if they're still suffering.
Right.
When we can solve it, it's not like they're suffering because we can't solve it. They're suffering because we don't solve it, not because we can't solve it.
Right. Ooh, I love that. It's not because we can't, it's because we don't. And I think that, I'm just putting the correlation of, I'm in a marketing space. So, and I always try to teach organizations and business owners of, if you've got marketing people that are just kind of like regurgitating what I call vanity metrics, right? Who gives a crap of how many likes you have on, your social post or how many emails you sent out? If you aren't change, either changing perception about your brand so that people will do more business with you, or for people to come work for you and they're engaged and they enjoy working for you. I was like, those are real outcomes.
No, you're
Vanity metrics do not, like, you shouldn't be paying attention to those things. And it almost seems like what you're talking about, the organization, this that industrial kind of complex of people are more focused on those vanity metrics of, hey, we did this many awards, or we've gone to this many events, or we've done this many activities, but it didn't produce outcomes.
100%, Jennifer. Vanity metrics became a huge part of my life. And I realized again around 2010 it was happening.
Mm.
And 2015, I started to try to create a new kind of approach to poverty. And then 2018, I was like, okay, I got to move on. It's just too much a part of the work. And I think that is applicable across the board, and not only the poverty nonprofit space,
Yeah,
but
I think that gets caught up in a lot of
uh,
organizations.
and
Yep,
again, who suffers as a result? It's the people we're supposed to be helping to rise out of poverty.
that's right. All right, so if we meet a year from now and we're going out to celebrate something, what are we celebrating?
I think we're celebrating a documentary that we did about poverty in the United States and how to better address it. And I
Nice.
think the evolution of stories to be a major piece in people's educational or just education on poverty. They'll be able to watch the Stories Initiative, and our website at that point, I do believe, will be a much more robust teaching tool.
Ah,
But we're looking to do this documentary at the end of the summer sometime, I believe. We're still locking it down. And that's where we'll get interviews with people in their places around the country. So we'll travel the country.
very good. Do you already have a distribution partner on that, or like a Netflix or a PBS?
We don't. You know, one of my colleagues and I are just talking it over right now. I've talked with a few people about it. It's in an embryonic stage.
Hmm. Well, we're putting it out there,
Yeah,
manifesting it.
that's right.
Next year, we're going to celebrate it.
I'm supposed to do it. I've talked about poverty so much. I need to go and look at, okay, this is the south of South Dakota. And this
Yeah.
is what it's like. This is the four corners with Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. This is what it's like. This is what it's like for people in some of the rural areas in the South that we have, again, ignored
Yeah.
at our own detriment. And this is what's Central Appalachia. This is what's happening there. I think I need to go to those places and talk with people and let them teach.
Right. I think it's, when people can see it, then it's, I didn't recognize there was a problem. A lot of
Yeah,
times we kind of, till we see it, we don't believe it.
that's right.
So,
That's
yeah. Well, I'm excited for that. That'll be fun. So, who has been your greatest cheerleader?
right. Oh, I've had some really phenomenal team members along the way. I think of the people in my first organization. If they didn't come along, the organization would have never taken off. Uh, so there are, people from the community. I think of what a woman like Pam Feinstein did for the organization I worked at. I think of what Lisa Stransky did for me since I started the first organization and how she helped me in this organization. So it's the people I work closely with, Polly Poffenroth or Catherine Ross Phillips is my co-founder. If not for
Okay.
her, there wouldn't be a shared humanity project.
Well, very good. Shout out to your cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So, if you summed up your entrepreneur, your founder journey in just one word, what would that word be?
Evolving.
Evolving.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
evolving. It's unfinished.
Unfinished. That's a good word.
I give you two.
That is a great word. I was like, I've, interviewed founders, hundreds of them. And what I love most is we all have similar themes of our struggles, our ahas, our oh shit, moments. But our words are very distinctive to our journey. And we rarely, rarely have any repeats. I think we have like maybe 3 words that have been in repeat
Yeah.
over hundreds. And unfinished is a new word. So I love it. If you look ahead to your next chapter, what word defines that chapter?
Possibility. Really pursuing what is possible.
I love it. Kind of that, put that hope.
We
But
we
you said it can't just be about hope. It needs to be, it's possible.
Yeah, and my feelings about possibility and pursuing what is possible are based on my kind of hardcore research. Like,
Hmm.
this is what we know about the human condition, but can we manifest that? Like, we know we're not just these physical beings in this 5'8" frame. We know that there's energy that is at the core of who we are, and that energy transcends the physical. Um, and so, how can that manifest? Like, how can we be a species that lives up to its potential?
I'm all in. I love it. Mark, how you seem you're very disciplined, right? And you've got this you've shifted an entire like a paradigm shift from organization into this new organization, a whole different mindset, but you're also changing mindsets. How do you keep yourself disciplined so that you don't lose the mission? Like, how are you keeping everybody on track so that that you are a different type of an organization that you wanted to create? What do you do to discipline yourself and your team?
Well, I kind of ground myself in prayer every day. And it's kind of my own, everybody has their own spirituality. Well,
That's
not
right.
everybody, some people have. For me, it's been kind of combining what I thought were really, to me, the most authentic truths, and then adding that to prayer, and then just trying to listen. And every day, if you do that every day, it provides a pretty good pathway for yourself. It doesn't tell you, hey, do this, write that better, use better words, but it at least keeps me from, again, getting selfish in this. Like, I really believe that we talked about this earlier. I'm not ego attached to this work, and I feel quite selfless in doing it, but I don't say that to pat myself on the back. I need to do this work. Like, I think it is the most authentic way for me to live.
That's right. It's purpose driven.
So,
The purpose driven
yeah.
life.
And then my team, I just happen to get lucky. I mean, the interns I have now are spectacular people. Hopefully, we'll work together for a long time. And Catherine, like I said, just is so supportive of what I want to do. I just couldn't ask for a better partner.
Mm. And was it easier to recruit with such a defined mission and also just a different mission, kind of again kind of changing that, hey, we've all been in the space, but this is how we're going to do it different? Was it easier to recruit people?
Well, we had 1,600 applicants for the internships, and we had the research assistant position. And I just got lucky that my interns are so high level that I just hired interns and didn't need to replace the kind of staff position.
Right.
So, yeah, the message seems to hit. That's a lot. But I also think when you work remote and everybody can work remotely, you get a lot more applicants
That's
too.
right.
Really increases your
That
application pool
freedom.
and work from anywhere.
That's fantastic. What's the best piece of advice that you've received as from another founder, business leader that you really took to heart and that's you kind of apply it to how you run your, cuz whether it's a nonprofit, it's still a business, it's kind of operate a little bit differently, but is there any like advice that you can share with our listeners?
Well, not to give you a long answer to a question, you might want a short one, but I found that business leaders, CEOs of private corporations, for profits, have been to me the most inspiring people. And there was a man, he's since passed away, and that's real sad. But his name is Bruce Lee, not the Bruce Lee who was the
I was
marketing.
like, Bruce Lee. He had some pretty fantastic quotes.
Yeah, he sure did. But this was a gentleman named Bruce Lee in Maryland, and he would always say, do whatever it takes, keep being yourself. And
Mm.
that can get to be difficult, right? Because you could, like you mentioned earlier, you alluded to, do I change to make sure I appeal? Does my message change to make sure I appeal to donors?
Right.
Do I change who I am? And that's easy to allow. But Bruce was somebody who he just motivated me with, kind of believing in me and also saying, keep fighting and doing whatever it takes. And so I miss him, but I honor, kind of his message to me by keeping that close to my heart.
Well, that's good advice for everybody. Just keep going, keep moving forward, keep focused, and keep winning.
I think it is. I think it's trust your gut. If you get into this work
Mm,
because you feel like you could be a part of something bigger, make sure it's selfless that you're in it for, and
right.
then keep trusting your gut. And when you don't feel good about something, that probably needs to change. Don't just accept it or even embrace it and change who you are.
That's right. Oh no, that's good advice. No matter where you sit in the org chart, it's
That's
just
right.
good.
Right.
That's just good advice.
Yeah.
People can lead from their seat, and if they don't feel like they're aligned, it's time to change.
Yeah. I should have
Yeah.
listened to some of my staff more, I think, in my life, because I've had some really earnest individuals I could have listened a little bit better to.
Hmm. So that's like your rewind moment.
Yeah, that's right.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I could talk about this subject for a long time. The Humanity Project. I love it. So before we go, where can people connect with you, find more information about you, Mark, and about the Humanity Project
Well,
and help you, support
yeah,
you?
sure. I think, our website, which is kind of evolving as well as my team takes a crack at it and they're going to improve on it. But I think emailing me is really simple, MARK at sharedhumanityproject.org. That's Mark at sharedhumanityproject.org, or just go to sharedhumanityproject.org and check it out. Either way, I'd love to hear from people. I mean, I think that we do. My colleague was telling me this morning, Mark, we're ready to ask for funds. Let's go do it because we have
Yeah,
great products. So I think that made me feel encouraged.
absolutely. And again, next year, we're going to celebrate
I look forward to that in Greenville.
in Greenville. Yeah. When you come back from Florida,
That's right.
we'll go grab coffee. So thank you. And like I said, these shows go so fast. I um, can't believe some of these conversations. So powerful. And for our listeners, thank you for watching us and joining us today. This podcast, of course, will be available on all your favorite podcast platforms. So give us a shout out, a subscribe, 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We'd love to see it and help us build a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That is Orange Whip, WIP for work in progress, because that's what we all are. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We are in 3 South Carolina markets today, looking to expand to other cities. We've designed hyper local media platforms to inform, inspire, and be the independent connective tissue between founders and their local entrepreneurial ecosystem. Our innovative digital zines are an all in one content hub. We tell fresh and engaging stories through the podcast and through just great storytelling, curated local calendars where a founder can find not just the local events, but the incubator and accelerator signups, the grant opportunities in that local market. They can find all the local resources in a dynamic, filterable resource directory to help founders really navigate their local ecosystem with ease. We've done all the hard work for founders to just go to one trusted local source for everything they need in one place. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or support us, send us an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is where AHA meets Oshette, and we will see you again next week.